Welcome to Figure Eight, where we feature inspiring stories of women entrepreneurs who have grown their businesses to 7 and 8 figures revenue. If you're in the mix of growing a bigger business, these stories are for you. Join us as we explore where the tough spots are, how to overcome them, and how to prepare yourself for the next portion of the climb. I'm your host, Julie Ellis. I'm an author, entrepreneur, and a growth and leadership coach who co-founded, grew, and exited an 8-figure business. This led me to exploring why some women achieve great things. And that led to my book, Big Gorgeous Goals. Let's explore the systems, processes, and people that help us grow our businesses to new heights. If you're interested in growing your business, this podcast will help. Now, let's get going. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Figure Eight. Today, I'm joined by Denise Bedell. Denise is an EPPY-nominated journalist and editor who has been telling the stories of global companies and public institutions for over 20 years. She's a regular speaker at industry events, and her business, Content Innovo, is helping businesses share their content and tell stories around the world. And I'm so keen to talk to her today and hear about her journey and how we got here. So welcome, Denise.
Thanks for having me, Julie. I'm really excited to speak today.
Thanks so much. Tell me what it was like making a pivot out of sort
Mhm.
of media and journalism into entrepreneurship.
Well, it was quite a
There's a big
journey,
one to start
actually.
with, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so luckily, I had actually run a business before, a very small business, a bakery window in a cafe. So I had some background in running a business, but going from being, a journalist and talking about companies to having my own company was a huge pivot for me. When you go into the entrepreneurial experience, you don't necessarily have that full skill set. Like I had never done sales really, aside from at the bakery, which is a very different thing than service sales. I had never, handled a large scale operation. I had never, there are so many different hats that you have to wear as an entrepreneur. And I really just kind of had to learn on the job. Which I think most entrepreneurs really do. Luckily, I was able to kind of take advantage of some of the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Canada, which is wonderful. It's so supportive. That's how you and I met, of course, going through the Beyond Boundaries program, and you were one of our mentors, which we absolutely appreciated. And definitely experiences like that, going through having those resources, going through accelerators and things like that were very critical to helping me understand the kind of bigger picture of making that leap and moving from, writing to running a company.
Yeah, because it is a big leap, right?
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that, when you look at, so I'm kind of fascinated because not only did you take advantage of, programming and
Mhm.
opportunities that were available to you as a startup entrepreneur, but you also saw a market opportunity in helping other women startup entrepreneurs with the things they were struggling with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When we started Content Innovo, we were really focused on the enterprise space. So my background had been working with large companies, telling their stories, writing about corporate finance and corporate, the life cycle of a corporate. So that was where my network was. So when I launched, I was really focused on the enterprise space. But going through some of the accelerators in here in Ontario, and then building that network, I recognized that there was an opportunity there, that there was a gap that needed to be filled, and that we had an opportunity to fill it. So we decided, a few years ago to start really kind of banging that drum. So really, talking to the innovation ecosystem, talking to entrepreneurs, talking to everyone in our network about what the challenges were, coming through the innovation ecosystem and where that gap was and how we could help fill it. And what we really saw was that that there was a challenge for the accelerators themselves, for their clients, and for their mentors, because every company came into it at a different stage. They had different, they had different setup. They may have understood their go-to-market strategy. They may not have. They might have come from a business background. They may have had no background in sales, marketing, or content strategy. And so when mentors were working with clients, every client was different, and every client was at a different phase in their evolution. So we saw an opportunity to really kind of level that playing field, and create a very structured approach to building go-to-market strategy. And having all of those companies come to their mentorship and advisory process with that level playing field, with all those assets and all those pieces in place in order to more effectively work with their mentors, and move through the program.
Right. And that's so interesting because obviously, I mean, selling to like a large multinational and how
Mhm.
customized and quite frankly expensive a program like
Yes.
that would be and very
Absolutely.
bespoke, right? It's a bespoke
Yeah.
kind of a thing compared to entrepreneurs who need you have to find a way to sort of package it up and
Mhm.
systemize it so that it can be affordable for a startup.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what we did is we just created a very structured, streamlined approach. So we would, have each of the entrepreneurs, each of the companies fill out a questionnaire, which would tell us about what they had, their understanding of their market, their understanding of their audiences, and so on. By making it a questionnaire, it allowed us to streamline it and keep that budget very low, which, as you said, and as we all know, is very critical for this market landscape. And then we could, work with our strategists to create a very, structured package, where we would take all that information and they would come out with, audience personas and a competitive market landscape analysis, and, understanding their value prop, understanding their points of difference, understanding their content strategy, having a channel plan in place, and really having that short editorial calendar so that they were ready to go. When they were ready to start sales, when they were ready to start marketing, they had all those pieces in place, and they could use that as a jumping off point.
Very, very helpful. I mean, I can't, getting organized on all of those different fronts is a big task.
Mhm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and a lot of them did, they might have had some pieces in place, like they might have had a description of their audiences, but not really understood, if you have this bigger picture, this acts not just for your marketing, but you can also use it as the foundation for your ICP, for your ideal customer profile. And so it helps with sales. It also gives you that single approach to sales and marketing, so that your messaging is the same, so that you're approaching the market and building your brand and your brand equity in a consistent way, which is really critical as well to market growth.
Yep. And so what are the kinds of varieties of companies that you've helped with this program?
Mhm. Yeah, so we've actually run about 60 different companies through our program now, which has been great through various accelerators. And we've worked with all kinds of companies. Our sweet spot is really around B2B tech. Professional services, financial services. In the tech space, we focus on, fintech, health tech, sustainable tech, and ed tech, and that's been kind of really well aligned with the accelerators that we've worked with. On the tech side, they're often specialized. So it might be a fintech accelerator, it might be all different kinds of tech. But their basic needs are somewhat the same. And then when you look at the other entrepreneurial ecosystems, women entrepreneurs and LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs, for example, it's much broader. So we've ended up working with direct to consumer companies, with B2B, B2C, a lot of digital companies, but also some bricks and mortar. We've worked with clothing brands, we've worked with food companies, just all different kinds of companies.
It really goes with the as you were saying that, all I could think of was, they tell you to niche down, but
Hmm.
when you niche down, it lets you scale up. And that's kind of what I
Yeah,
see here is like
right.
you can actually serve a lot of people, but
Mhm.
you have to bring it in to
Yeah.
really, like, put the value prop out there in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And that's, I think, one of the key things that we try to focus on is that although you may have a number of different audiences or different markets, your value prop is where you start, you know? So if your value prop is well defined, then that tells you how to reach those different markets. And it may be that you have to break down your audiences in, you know, two or three different types, but you don't need to have 12 different audiences. You know, you can look at who is the decision maker, what are their characteristics, what are their drivers, and often it's quite consistent across different audiences. And so you can use that to build those bigger personas, and then it helps not only in reducing the resources that you have to spend on marketing to those different audiences, but it also helps you when it comes to sales. It helps your sales team to, you know, to think higher level and understand, you know, those needs and pain points rather than saying, okay, here's our product, let me tell you about it, this is why you should buy it, or, taking that more product first approach. It really helps you to go from that needs first approach, which is resonates so much more with your
Yeah,
audiences.
and I mean, let's face it, for everybody, like, finding the little crack in the armor of people to get
Yeah,
in is harder and harder,
exactly.
right? It's
Yeah,
noisier and noisier out there in the world.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, you definitely have to be more strategic and more intentional in terms of your approach.
So when you think of, I mean, what you imagined when you started Content Innovo and what you're doing today, obviously we all pivot our businesses along the way. That's
Mhm.
part of, finding the fit and finding the market. But
Yeah.
what did you imagine and, compared to where you're at now?
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. We're
Yeah.
definitely not, focused on, the markets or the spaces that I expected to when I first launched. We've had great traction in the enterprise space, but we have seen a contraction in that space. When we started, companies didn't really have a content marketing team, and so they were looking a lot externally for that kind of support. But now a lot of the big enterprises are really building those teams, and they have specialized needs, in terms of specific writers, or niche content creators, which is definitely still kind of one of our key value props. Uh, but they're not looking for someone to come in and really run the program for them and build, as much as they used to. So as we've seen a contraction in that space, we've really grown on the the innovation ecosystem space, also with agencies who are supporting SMBs or larger clients, and other markets that make sense as well. And so with our kind of innovation ecosystem program, we've been able to roll that out to other markets. So we're looking at trade agencies, for example, who are supporting their companies to move to global markets. We're looking at the investor ecosystem because they have a portfolio of companies that all need to have those key pieces in place. And we're looking at agencies, so like marketing agencies, PR, research and development firms, and so on, that just don't have the kind of content marketing and marketing support that their clients are asking for. So we can come in and partner with them and provide that as well.
Mhm. And so what's it like for you as the kinda leader as the leader
Hmm.
of
Yeah.
all these sort of pillars that you're working
Mhm.
on developing? Because they're
Uh,
quite different from each
Sorry.
other.
They are indeed. Yeah. And we've really split our organization into two pieces. So we have the enterprise, but we also have the SMB. And that was challenging for me. And it's still challenging for me because we have different marketing and sales needs. We have different operational needs. One of my key jobs is making sure that we have that network that can help, on a project by project basis, or program by program basis. So I spend a lot more of my time making sure that we have the supports that we need for those two different audiences. The way that I manage my team is different for those two different groups. Our sales process is completely different. Our pricing is very different. So that definitely it's been challenging for me to figure that out. But we've tried to take a really strategic an intentional approach to that evolution, and we try to just document everything. We're very process oriented, so we definitely will, create a roadmap and then document the different pieces and then implement rollout on a kind of considered basis, and start with the kind of our key core team and then roll out to our larger team and to our network, and just be really intentional about that, because otherwise it's just chaos.
Yeah. And what's it been like for you in terms of like the evolution of your role? Because
Hmm.
obviously, when we all start businesses, we kind of do everything.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then, today you're obviously trying to umbrella over a bunch of
Mhm.
different things that are happening. What has that
Yeah.
evolution been like for you?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, actually, because I recently went through a leadership training program that really helped me with exactly that, identifying the kind of the things that I needed to focus on, that I wanted to focus on, and working towards passing on some of those responsibilities that in the past I might have taken on, and making sure that we have the infrastructure in place for those responsibilities to move to the appropriate people, but then also, creating an environment that allowed people to grow in the ways that they wanted to. And whereas a few years ago, although I always tried to create, the environment that I wanted and make sure that it was a good environment for people to feel supported in. Um, it's been much more intentional in the last couple of
Yeah,
years.
and that's good, I
Yeah.
think, because I see a lot in the work I do with scaling up entrepreneurs that,
Hmm.
you know, we don't start businesses because we think we're gonna have 50 people reporting to us. We start it
Yeah.
because we see a need, have an idea,
Mhm.
those kinds of things. And,
Exactly.
it's a journey to figure out how to and a journey to figure out how to not be the roadblock, how to manage a team
Hmm.
and manage it really well, and how to level yourself up. So I think it's great that, you've used programs and
Hmm.
people to help you with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. No,
because
absolutely.
you also get to that place where you need the sounding boards outside of your own table. Your own boardroom table is no longer your sounding board.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And luckily I've had some great mentors and great network to fall back on and to reach out to. I mean, I am constantly amazed by how wonderful the entrepreneurial ecosystem is in Ontario, in Southern Ontario, and even more locally. It's just, if you need those resources, they are there for you. And so much is available free of charge or at low cost. And as soon as you're part of that network, everyone is always happy, to talk or to help, to provide you with other resources, to connect you, and it's just really amazing. I feel really lucky to be a part of this
Yeah.
ecosystem.
Well, and I mean, let's talk about building networks, right? I
Mhm.
mean, you had the opportunity to enter into a startup ecosystem that has really helped you build yourself, your business, your team, all the different pieces. But
Mhm.
I think that, building networks and finding the right people to put around you is such a key and important part to being able to achieve the things that you set out on your goals.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I 100% agree. And I don't know that all entrepreneurs kind of are aware of what's available and necessarily understand the importance of that. And I think that that's really, really critical, to be successful and to understand how to go from one step to the next, because it is a process. And sometimes it's a process like this and sometimes it's a process like this, and you really need to have that network in place in order to understand those steps and to be able to kind of bridge the gaps, and you have to have, as you said, those people around you that can really help you to follow that path, whatever it might take.
Yeah, because I think, as an entrepreneur, you're pretty much in a constant like growth mindset learning place.
Hmm.
Whether your business is struggling a little bit, whether it's growing, whether it's going constant, there's
Hmm.
always something that you're learning as the leader of it. If you're ever not learning, you're like waiting for it, you're sitting there, because it is a hard curve to get up.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it brings to mind risk tolerance for me. As an entrepreneur, you have to have a higher level of risk tolerance than the average person, I would say. And um, despite no matter what your risk tolerance is, there's always going to be moments where it's tested. And that brings us back to, the network and supports, and having that structure and infrastructure around you to work through those moments, because they are coming. No matter who you are or or what your company is, you're going to hit those moments.
Well, and would you have said, like, when you started this business, what would you have said your risk tolerance was? Has that changed?
It has absolutely changed. So when I started, it was just me, and I had hopes that it would grow, but I didn't really have a vision of how I would go from just me to having a team. So definitely making that first step to bring in a head of sales, that was a huge jump in my risk tolerance. And as a leader, especially as a woman leader, I think that we take on a big sense of responsibility for our teams, and we have to find that balance as well, because we have to understand our risk tolerance. We have to understand how we manage our own kind of sense of responsibility and our own kind of empathy within our business, to not just lead well, but also to lead our companies well, because that's not always the same. And I think that's a big part of understanding our risk tolerance as a female entrepreneur, as well as finding that balance.
Yeah. And tell me how you differentiate between sort of leading well and leading your company well.
So I would say leading well is leading your team well, or for me, it's being a good leader. It's uh, creating the environment that allows your team to flourish, and allows you to flourish, that aligns your needs with your team's needs, aligns your team's needs with your company's needs. Um, and then leading the company well, it's not necessarily the same thing, because the needs of the company are often different. Not I don't want to say often, are sometimes different than the needs of your team. And you have to be able to balance that. You have to be the person who can say, okay, this person is just not working. I'm going to do my best to try and help them to succeed, but if they can't succeed, I have to do something about that. And as a leader of a company, I have to be able to do that. And sometimes that role is quite different than the role of being just purely a good leader.
Yeah. And of, bringing your own team, because one of the hard things too in that sort of scale up process is that those
Mhm.
early people can't always make it all the way with you. Right?
Yeah,
Some
absolutely.
of the people you relied upon the most in the early days, which is always incredibly difficult.
Absolutely. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And just thinking, yeah, how do you want to send them back out into the world and what can you do for them?
Right.
Because that is hard. The team.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you think you went about as you grew, like building a culture that people wanted to be a part
Mm.
of?
Yeah. So culture, from the beginning was very important to me, and it was something that I thought about, a lot. And I always wanted to have an inclusive culture. I always wanted to have a diverse culture. I always wanted to, lead in a way that people would want to, you know, stay with me long term. I wanted to have a company culture that encouraged people to grow and flourish, because I've always believed that, that is the best way to success. That your team is critical, and if you support them, and help them to grow, then it helps you and it helps your company. So I've always kind of had that in mind and tried to lead from that perspective. But we also uh, went through a very intentional process last year where we implemented an inclusivity and accessibility program. We revamped a lot of our processes. We revamped our sales processes. We revamped a lot of our documentation. Our terms. With clients. We tried to look at all of our operations, across the board, and build inclusivity and accessibility into everything that we did. And we brought together a team, that included people that, had accessibility needs. We included, people from different backgrounds in order to ensure that how we were moving forward was really going to align with that idea that I've always had around corporate culture, and just make it document it and make it intrinsic. Make it a.
And was it that you felt like it was something you were sort of espousing but not fully doing in the way? Or was it that the company had gotten larger and you needed a way to more formally kind of entrench it? Like, what was it that kind of prompted you to decide upon taking that action last year?
I would say it was twofold. Number one, I wanted to to set up a company. I mean, my goal is to bring in a major investor or to sell the company, in a few years. So I wanted to make sure that the company was already set up with that in place, and that was part of the building blocks of the company so that it could continue, once someone else comes in and might have a different kind of, background or so on. So that was one piece of it, and the other, I would say, is just, the team was getting larger, and I wanted to make sure that not only, actually, I would say there are three things. So the team was getting larger. I wanted to make sure that everyone was aligned, that we were only bringing in people that were aligned with that corporate culture, that we were thinking intentionally about our corporate culture and bringing in people that were aligned with that. And then also, I wanted to make sure that externally with clients, that we were setting the standards, that we were setting the backdrop in order to have engagements that were, successful and aligned with our corporate culture.
Well, and it kind of feels like it's this place, you talked about earlier just how our leadership needs to evolve and change as the company
Hmm.
grows. And there's this place where culture has to pass from being the founder or the
Yeah.
CEO's responsibility to spilling into the organization where it lives, breathes, and, is constantly upheld.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you can't, force it down kind of thing, and not
Yes.
that you're trying to, but it does there's this noticeable kind of shift, I think.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing is that, we're seeing in the world that there's pushback. I mean, I don't want to not address that,
No, and
and
trying
it
to
was
stand for what you really believe in.
exactly. Yeah.
And so what do you also the other thing that comes to my mind about it is just this idea of so if you do want to bring in the big investor or exit the
Hmm.
company or step away from your CEO role at some point, I mean,
Hmm.
the most sellable companies are where you're expendable, not that you are, but
Hmm.
you know what I mean, right? You have
Yes,
to be able to be replaceable in order for
exactly.
you to eventually, at the right time, take your leave. And so
Yeah.
is that something that you think about?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's really why we've been so process driven, and why we're so um why documentation and creating structures and foundation that's clearly demarcated is so important to me, because for that very reason, because my job as the CEO is to create a team and a structure and a company that can live on its own, that doesn't require just me or someone else in order to continue its life.
Yeah. I think that I mean, it makes a lot of sense, but it's in practice sometimes very difficult to do.
Yes.
So letting go can be hard.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Yep.
absolutely.
Good.
Mhm.
And what's next? What's next for Denise? What's next for Content Innovo?
Yeah, So we're actually still evolving, of course, and our work in the innovation ecosystem is really informing our next evolution. So we've really understood, that this need, um, within the SMB space and the smaller company space, and even the medium-sized company space, for operationalization of go-to-market strategy and operationalization of the sales, marketing, and operations. And we've really seen that coming from that, getting that strategy in place, companies are really struggling with that next step. They they have the strategy. They need a roadmap. They need to know where they're at, and they need to know how to get to where they need to go. And they don't just need that roadmap, they need someone to put it in place. We talked about the innovation ecosystem and mentors and so on. And that learning is wonderful. All the education and all the help and all the guidance that companies receive is great, but often they just don't have the resources, they don't have the time, and they don't need that knowledge. An entrepreneur, a leader, a CEO doesn't need to know how to set up a CRM and make sure that it's giving you the metrics that you want and that it's reflecting. What they need is someone to set it up, someone to teach their people how to do it right, and then that dashboard so they know what they need to know in order to make those big decisions.
And who to
um,
call when it all breaks.
exactly, yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're focused on kind of building that next phase. So we've started rolling out an audit for sales, for marketing, and for content marketing, to understand what companies have, what they need, and then to build them a roadmap. And then we're also bringing together fractional teams. Not just a CMO or a CSO or a COO, but also the next level down, those implementers. In order to kind of come in, say, okay, we've done this audit, we've looked at what you have and what you need, we've built that roadmap. Now, whichever piece of that you need us to put together, we can do it because we have that expertise. So really to help them from that first step to the next step of getting it all in place and implementing it, to training, and then here we are and we can help with the rollout as well. so
I really love though this feeling of like you are formalizing a structure and a process and at the same time remaining nimble and following what the market is demanding and needs, because
yeah,
I think that often people think those things are exclusive of each other.
right, yeah. Yeah, and I think actually coming from the enterprise space has helped us to be quite nimble because, as you said, it's often very bespoke, and the needs are so different, from company to company, and even business unit to business unit within an organization. So it gave us that mindset, and then we work on a network model, so we just bring in the resources as we need them, which gives us really that kind of flexibility as well to adjust to the needs of individual companies.
So good. Well, I can't wait to see where your journey takes you next and how Content Innovo grows and how your hand helps lead it into the future. Thank you so much for joining me today, and
Thank
I look
you.
forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Take care. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please remember to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you won't miss any episodes. Figure 8 isn't just a podcast. It's a way of seeing the big, gorgeous goals of women entrepreneurs coming to life. If you're interested in learning more, you can find my book, Big, Gorgeous Goals, on Amazon anywhere you might live. For more about my growth and leadership training programs, visit www.julieellis.ca to see how we might work together. Read my blog or sign up to get your free diagnostic. Are you ready for growth? Once again, that's www.julieellis.ca. When we work together, we all win. See you again soon for another episode of Figure 8.